Hi everyone, I'm Carrie Jacquet, VP of Marketing at Sensage, and I'm here today with Joe Gottlieb, our President and CEO, for another 5 Minutes with Joe. Today we're going to be talking about a recent article that appeared from EIQ Networks talking about SIEM being dead. And because SIEM is near and dear to our hearts, it of course attracted our attention, and we want to talk a little bit about what we took away from the story, as well as what we're seeing from others in the industry about that provocative claim. So first of all, SIEM is dead. What do you think?
Well, it's a provocative thing to say. It certainly can catch some headlines. I'd say in many ways we agree, but we think it's overstated, right? So we've been talking about for some time now that breaches are happening because security is being implemented in an incomplete way, and that's true of not only SIEM but also other technologies. And Bill Brenner of CSO Magazine makes this point. If we declare something dead simply because we haven't done a nice job implementing it, or if we've implemented it but it's now needed to be complemented with something else to be effective, then we can't just declare that stuff dead. That's one point. Another point would be that it's true that they have some data. We have data as well. Our reports suggest that 95% of SIEM users aren't finding enough data to get access to what they need to do to figure out the problem and actually and make progress on it. They have some similar data as well, and so we would agree with that aspect of this particular position to be taken. You really do need to make sure you have a complete implementation of SIEM, and that means taking in a lot of data. A lot of these SIEM implementations got started on the very narrow scope of real-time monitoring and had not contemplated the scope of comprehensive monitoring of more sources and looking at historical correlation of things that might be perpetrated over time. And so that's a bigger enchilada to tackle, and most of these projects didn't tackle it initially. You also see a tendency when someone has this implementation that for any of a number of reasons isn't perfect, and none of these things are perfect, right? You might get a political situation where someone wants to get a new project going because they didn't buy the first one in the first place,
Yeah.
or that requirements have actually evolved and shifted more towards a new area beyond what was originally anticipated. And so we're finding more and more of these companies, as they get more progressive at addressing the broader scope of requirements, they're actually bringing in something like Sensage to do historical analysis alongside an existing let's say real-time console. So that's happening more and more as people start to grapple with the
That
level.
it's not just a rip and replace your existing SIEM, maybe doing a fine job for a certain component, right? And so as your needs grow, you've got to be looking for vendors who know how to work together and who are thinking about things in more of a standards-based approach.
That's right. So you can. We do it all under one hood, which is an attractive aspect of the Sensage architecture, but because there's a lot of folks already out there with a real-time console, we're also finding ourselves showing up to complement those, and so working and playing nice with openness and open architecture is helpful there. But I do see the general trend here, and it's true of what EIQ said, it's true of what we say, it's also true of how Bill was commenting on the article, was that there are more sophisticated attacks out there, and traditional approaches, limited to the things that we've implemented over the past 10 years, much of it driven by real-time focus, they indeed are not sufficient to really be able to isolate these attacks and understand what's going on and to then make adjustments with your security posture. So that is certainly true, and whether you're being provocative or just sort of fact-based and sort of dealing with what's going on, we think it's a worthy discussion. But SIEM as a category, not going away, and remember it involves both information management and event management, and both of those need to be handled very, very well, sometimes by different technologies depending upon your preference.
Right. And so going back to one of our research pieces, we worked with Forrester on a technology adoption perspective, and there were two things that came out loud and clear. You already touched on one of them, which was, in order to really do a comprehensive job, you have to think about the storage element, which is going to bring in lots of data. How are you going to manage that? And sometimes the concessions are made by security practitioners that, gosh, we can't handle that capacity, or our current vendor can't handle that amount of data, or what would we do with it once we did collect it? So that I think is an important piece. And then the second you also touched on about the access and analysis. No point in collecting it if you can't really rationalize the data quickly and and in a cohesive way. So I don't know if you want to comment on those two things. But
yeah, no, it's very true, right? So both of those challenges, i.e. having a technology that can even collect and address that amount of data, is net new and hard to do. Secondly, there's an economic impact of keeping data around, And so if you're not going to use it, it's going to cost you both in terms of potentially swapping out a technology needed to handle it, as well as the cost of the storage needed to store it. And so on multiple counts there, you could exhaust yourself and give up and not bother to go down this road.
Right.
But what we're finding in practice is that companies that have not addressed it at that level are increasingly exposed.
Right.
Because the breaches that are happening because
the Stanford one, the
people aren't
Sony
staying on top of
one,
it.
I think,
That's right.
they're all great examples of data that's been sitting somewhere for a year or 2 years being accessed by folks. I mean, we've talked about even, research, research that's being shared between healthcare organizations,
Right.
things like that. It definitely is that you're not looking at the what's transpiring in the here and now, and more looking back at, wow, why is this server all of a sudden being accessed and it hasn't been for 8 to 12 months? What's happening here? So.
And the most recent attack that I've seen on the radar is Mitsubishi, a Japanese defense contractor, apparently the largest Japanese defense contractor, who's also involved in some projects for the U.S., was breached, and they're starting to share some details about that. So starting to span the globe a bit here more, and obviously on the forefront of people's minds in the security industry.
Any other thoughts on this? Or, I mean, obviously we thought Bill did a great job sort of documenting the, response to the provocative statement, but anything else?
Yeah, and also quite encouraging is that several comments on his story were, I think, right in line with the way this is. It's not as simple as that. There's a lot of vendor posturing that goes on. But there's some kernels of, of thought here that are worth analyzing, as we've talked about. Shifting requirements, if we can stay on top of those, and there's lots of reasons to have an excuse not to bother, but that can cause some jeopardy down the road.
So ask about the Forrester TAP piece. It's on our website, but if you need anything, please definitely write to info@sensage.com, and we'll also share with you some of the interesting things we're producing around our storage capability, our querying capabilities, and our open security intelligence community, which you're welcome to join, and we hope you do. So thanks so much, and we'll look forward to another 5 Minutes with Joe very soon.